Welcome to the podcast Creator Flow by D Creator, powered by Howdy Analytics. Today, we're really cutting through the noise around, well, one of life's absolute biggest decisions, buying a home.
Yeah, it's huge.
We're going to dissect this incredible framework. It's called Creator Flow 10. I don't rush offers, I architect them. Think of it as a masterclass, really, in conscious creation within the real estate world.
That's a great way to put it.
Our mission today is to transform your home buying journey, moving it from something potentially overwhelming,
Which it often is.
right, into something that's truly strategic, a protected investment.
Exactly. You know, we're often given this checklist, right? Do this, sign that. But we're rarely told why.
Or what to even ask.
Or, yeah, more importantly, what are the critical probing questions we should be asking? This framework, it really offers a paradigm shift. For buyers, sure, but for agents too.
Okay.
It challenges those common myths we all hear, and it shines a light on the blind spots that can cost buyers dearly.
And not just upfront, right?
Oh, definitely not just upfront. We're talking potential costs over decades of ownership. By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand how to become the architect of your own future in real estate.
Love that. Architect.
Making sure your interests are truly protected every single step of the way.
Okay, so let's really unpack this right from the start, because I think for many of us, the common perception of a buyer's agent is, well, pretty straightforward. They open doors for us, they schedule the showings, maybe put in an offer when we say, yeah, I like this one. Essentially like a high-end chauffeur for house hunting.
Right, the door opener.
Yeah, but I'm guessing that's not really the full picture, is it?
You've absolutely nailed the common perception, but honestly, it barely scratches the surface of an agent's reality.
Okay.
What buyers often don't see is just the immense pressure, the intricate navigation happening behind the scenes.
Like what specifically?
Well, agents are operating within commission structures they don't control, often dealing with wildly fluctuating market conditions.
You mean like week to week?
We're talking weekly, sometimes even daily volatility.
Right.
Then you throw in buyer expectations.
Which are probably all over the place now.
Increasingly shaped by social media myths, yeah. Imagine trying to manage a client who just saw some viral TikTok about guaranteed offer-winning hacks.
Oh, boy.
While you're simultaneously tracking new lending regulations and maybe an unexpected spike in interest rates. And on top of all that, the legal landscape. It's evolving so fast, demands constant adaptation, especially around disclosures, contracts.
Wow.
It's like being a tightrope walker in a hurricane, truly.
Yeah.
Trying to balance all these external forces while guiding a client through maybe the biggest financial decision of their life.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It sounds like reducing an agent to just a door opener really, really undervalues the immense complexity of their role.
Hugely.
So what's the specific impact of this perception gap on the buyer-agent relationship itself?
Oh, it's incredibly significant because it fundamentally misrepresents the agent's true value proposition.
Right.
When buyers just see agents as, facilitators, they miss the strategic depth. An agent isn't just showing homes, they are actively managing substantial financial risk for their client.
Risk management, interesting.
Yeah, and decoding buyer psychology, helping filter out those emotional biases that can lead to really poor decisions. And they're actively trying to prove their worth in a system that often fails to transparently explain how their compensation even works.
Right.
This lack of transparency, combined with that door opener myth, it just leads to a fundamental misunderstanding of their role. If you don't fully grasp the intricate dance of market forces, legal changes, emotional management, you just can't appreciate the value an agent should be bringing.
That makes so much sense. And it brings us right to that huge, comforting, but ultimately misleading idea we need to expose, the free agent myth.
Ah, yes, the big one.
We've all heard it, right? Don't worry, the seller pays the commission. It
That's-
sounds great, like we're getting expert help at absolutely no personal cost.
Right.
But what's the real truth here?
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting and often, pretty surprising for folks. While it's technically true that the seller disperses the commission.
Meaning they write the check.
Right. Their check is written to the agents involved at closing. But, and this is the crucial part, the buyer ultimately funds that entire transaction through the sale price.
Okay, break that down. How?
Think of it like this. That commission, it's already baked into the home's total price. Your offer determines that final price. And if you're financing the purchase, which most people are,
Right.
you're literally paying interest on that entire home price, including the commission fee that's bundled inside it for decades.
Wow. So it's not direct, But it's definitely my money.
It's absolutely your money covering that fee over the long run. It's not a direct out-of-pocket payment at closing, sure, but imagine buying a new car and the salesperson's commission was just silently added into your 5-year loan amount.
You'd be paying interest on it.
You'd be paying interest on that commission for years, maybe without even realizing it was a separate cost folded in. With a home, that's often 15, 20, even 30 years of paying interest on a portion of that agent's fee. It's anything but free.
That really reframes the financial impact.
Yeah.
If we're not scrutinizing this bundled financed cost,
Yeah.
wow, we're likely missing out on understanding true value and the long-term implications.
Obviously.
So, okay, if we strip away those misconceptions, the door opener, the free agent, hey, what's the real core of a good agent's job? What do they wish buyers truly understood about their strategic role, beyond just the logistics of touring homes?
It's fascinating, and what the source material really emphasizes is that an agent's job is fundamentally about strategy and protection.
Strategy and protection, okay.
They are there to protect buyers from, frankly, themselves sometimes, from emotional overreach. They structure offers designed to win, but without overpaying, especially in competitive markets.
That's key.
They flag inspection issues that could seriously derail resale value down the line. And they negotiate terms that rigorously preserve the buyer's equity. But here's the catch. They can only truly deliver this level of value if they are treated as a strategic partner.
Not just a chauffeur.
Exactly. Not merely a chauffeur. Our source material actually outlines this really powerful strategic framework. It breaks down the agent's role across the entire buying process, positioning them as that strategic guide at every single turn.
Let's dive into that framework then, because it sounds like it really redefines the whole engagement. What does that look like stage by stage?
Yeah, it's about proactive, layered protection. So in the pre-tour phase, before you even look at houses, the agent acts as an educator and strategist.
Setting the stage.
Exactly, setting the stage, helping you understand current market conditions, potential pitfalls, the overall process. This anchors your expectations in reality, not fantasy.
Okay, then you start looking.
Right. During touring, their role shifts. Now they're an analyst and advisor. They're not just unlocking the door, they're pointing out potential pros and cons objectively, filtering out your emotional biases.
Things you might miss when you're excited.
Precisely. Highlighting what might be missed.
Okay.
Is that cracked foundation just cosmetic? Or is it a major red flag? What are the true costs of renovating that dated kitchen? They help you see beyond just the aesthetics.
And then, okay, the critical stage. Making an offer. What's the agent's role then?
That's where they become your dedicated negotiator and tactician. This involves meticulously structuring an offer. Yes, it aims to win in competitive scenarios, but crucially, without unnecessarily overpaying,
Protecting your money.
protecting your equity. They're looking at comparable sales, market trends, specific property details, crafting terms that protect your future financial position. This is where their market knowledge and negotiation skills truly shine. Not just getting an offer accepted, but getting the right offer accepted for you.
Makes sense. What about after the offer? Inspection.
Critical phase. In the inspection phase, they transition into a vital risk manager role, helping you navigate the findings in the inspector's report, identifying significant problems, and negotiating resolutions. Avoiding that post-close regret is huge here.
And finally, closing.
Finally, during closing, they act as your advocate, ensuring the smooth execution of all those complex legal and financial steps, meticulously checking documents, tracking timelines, making sure everything goes according to plan.
Wow. So this isn't just a checklist of tasks. It's a comprehensive, strategic approach designed to protect you, the buyer, financially and emotionally.
That's the goal.
This perspective really redefined how you should view and engage with a buyer's agent. It's truly about leveraging their expertise as an essential part of your strategic team, not just a service provider you call when you need a door opened.
You got it. That's the shift in thinking.
That truly redefines the agent's role. But it's interesting, right? This often clashes with our own preconceived ideas as buyers. What are some of those misconception minefields that smart, well-intentioned buyers inadvertently stumble into? Things they assume, maybe unknowingly, when they approach the market.
Yeah, this is such a critical area because as our sources highlight, smart, motivated buyers often enter the market carrying these deeply ingrained assumptions that, frankly, inadvertently weaken their position.
They don't mean to.
No, not at all. They're not careless. They're often just uninformed. And the industry, let's be honest, hasn't always done enough to proactively correct these beliefs. These assumptions, they create significant friction, vulnerability.
Okay, like what? beyond the "my agent is free" myths we just busted?
Well, a big one is, if I like the house, I should offer immediately.
Right.
That impulse. But it ignores the crucial need for strategic analysis, for due diligence, for crafting a winning offer that isn't solely driven by emotion.
Gotta pause and think.
Exactly. Another common one. The listing price is fair. Often it's just a reflection of the seller's hopes, or maybe a strategic starting point designed to ignite bidding, not necessarily a true indicator of market value.
And I've definitely heard people say, oh, inspections are just formalities. That sounds incredibly risky.
It is hugely risky. Inspections are arguably your single most important risk management tool. They're not just a checkbox to tick off on the way to closing.
Okay.
And maybe the most pervasive one, the one that leads to buyer passivity, is my agent will handle everything.
The magic wand assumption.
Yeah, exactly. While agents do handle a lot, this assumes an almost psychic ability and completely removes the buyer's essential role in the partnership. Each of these assumptions can lead to overpaying, accepting unfavorable terms, inheriting costly problems after closing, or even waiving critical protections without fully understanding the consequences. They are truly blind spots. They prevent buyers from actively participating in their own protection and advocacy.
This leads us right into what our sources call the trust paradox, vetting versus blind faith. We often pick an agent based on, say, a referral from a friend, or they seemed nice at an open house, maybe saw a few posts on social media. But why do buyers often fail to vet them strategically? What are they missing out on?
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? You're about to entrust an agent with potentially the largest financial transaction of your life.
Right. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions. here.
Exactly. Yet many buyers rarely ask the truly critical strategic questions. They don't ask how an agent negotiates, specifically in a competitive seller's market, or how they handle inspection fallout when things get messy. What's their actual offer strategy for competitive situations, or even the basics like how they get paid and what that means for the buyer's bottom line.
Why the hesitation? Is it awkwardness?
It might stem from perceived rudeness, feeling like you're challenging them, or maybe just a lack of understanding of what to ask. There's often this underlying assumption that it's all standard practice, or just a general discomfort in challenging someone who seems helpful and friendly.
But that blind faith, however well-intentioned, can be incredibly costly. It leads to missed opportunities for better terms, stronger advocacy, and ultimately a less secure investment. You miss leveraging their full potential.
So the agent might be genuinely capable, but if the buyer isn't asking the right questions, they're essentially not unlocking that expertise. Can you give us a more detailed example, that silent buyer scenario you mentioned? What were the specific consequences there?
Yeah, the source illustrates this with some compelling detail. Let's imagine a buyer, we'll call her Sarah. She just moved to a new city. Her new colleague recommended their agent, Mark. Mark seemed friendly enough on the phone, good initial vibe.
Okay, sounds typical.
Right. Sarah hired Mark basically on that vibe without really asking about his strategic process, his negotiation style, or even his communication preferences during crunch time. She assumed, my friend liked him, he seems nice, he'll handle everything.
The common assumption. Exactly. They toured some homes. Sarah quickly fell in love with this charming older house. Mark submitted an offer, but maybe without a super deep dive into the comparable sales or a detailed discussion of the local market's specific nuances right then. And Sarah didn't push for these details. She figured Mark had it covered.
Trusting the process or the person.
Right. They closed. Initially, Sarah was thrilled, keys in hand, excited.
Honeymoon shades.
A honeymoon phase. But just 6 months later, reality started to bite. The charming older house revealed its secrets. The electrical system, mentioned vaguely in the inspection report Mark had forwarded, turned out to be dangerously outdated, required a $10,000 upgrade she hadn't budgeted for. Then a potential job transfer came up. She looked into selling, only to discover a complex local ordinance about historical designations she wasn't aware of. It severely limited her ability to make external modifications.
Impacting resale.
Hugely impacting its resale appeal to other buyers. And then she finally took a closer look at her financing terms, realized some specific clauses weren't fully understood, leading to a higher long-term cost than she anticipated.
Ouch.
The takeaway for Sarah was stark. Trust was given freely, based on a referral and niceness, but it was never challenged or earned through clear, proactive communication and strategic vetting. Both she and Mark missed crucial opportunities for protection and clarity because the right questions were never asked.
That's a powerful and unfortunately probably pretty relatable lesson for some listeners. So how can we as buyers break through this blind spot? What should we be asking to truly activate our agent and ensure we're not just passive passengers in this huge decision?
The key here, and the source emphasizes this, is for agents to lead with clarity, not just charm, and for buyers to demand it.
Both sides need to step up.
Yes. This means agents educating buyers before they even start touring homes, explaining compensation models up front, sharing their negotiation philosophy, debriefing thoroughly after each showing, not just moving on, and crucially, encouraging what the source calls walk-away readiness.
Okay, and from the buyer's side, what are the killer questions?
As a buyer, you need to be asking direct, penetrating questions like, beyond just finding homes, how do you specifically protect me from overpaying in this specific market? What's your detailed inspection negotiation strategy? How do you leverage those findings for me? Can you show me your offer win rate, or at least walk me through how you approach competitive offers to maximize my chances without overcommitting financially?
Those are tough questions.
They are, but they're necessary. Also, will you advise me to walk away if needed, even if I'm getting emotionally attached to a property? And a critical one in many markets today. How do you handle potential appraisal gaps? What's our plan B if the home doesn't appraise for the offer price?
Wow, those are specific and really get to the heart of the strategy.
Yeah.
I can see how asking those would completely shift the dynamic. It's not just a service transaction anymore.
Absolutely. It becomes a true strategic partnership.
Yeah.
These questions don't offend a good agent, they activate them. They signal you're a serious strategic partner, not just a passive client looking for keys. When you ask these kinds of questions, you're not just hiring someone to open doors. You're engaging an advocate who understands the financial battlefield of real estate and is ready to fight for your best interests. It transforms the relationship, ensures your financial protection is paramount. You're not just trusting blindly anymore, you're trusting strategically.
In Chapter 1, we really did explode that myth of the free agent, right? Revealing how buyers indirectly fund that commission, often for decades, through interest.
Yeah, that financing aspect is key.
Now let's zoom in on why this myth persists. Why do agents often seem to avoid the topic? And what does that silence actually cost everyone involved? If it's such a clear financial reality, why is it still treated like this?
Quiet secret. That's really the crux of this commission confusion, as the source calls it. Many agents, perhaps understandably, dodge the commission conversation for a few reasons.
Like what? Fear.
Yeah, they might fear losing the client if they bring up money too early, or they don't want to sound greedy. Some might even assume buyers won't understand the sometimes complex split structures, or maybe they just think, well, it's just the way it is.
But the silence.
But that silence, ultimately, it breeds suspicion. It undermines trust. In today's information-rich world where everything gets scrutinized online.
Right, buyers can Google anything.
Exactly. Hiding compensation details, or even just not being proactive about it, creates doubt. Buyers are savvier than ever. A lack of transparency can quickly be perceived as a lack of integrity. Being upfront isn't just good practice anymore, it's a competitive advantage. It builds a foundation of trust from the start, rather than risking erosion later. The uncomfortable truth is, this avoidance often comes at the buyer's expense.
It sounds like this open secret that everyone kind of knows is there but nobody talks about, leading to frustration, maybe even resentment down the line. Can you give us that detailed example of the commission fallout? How does this lack of upfront clarity actually play out for a buyer?
Yeah, the source provides a particularly vivid case study. Let's call the buyer Mark, first-time home buyer, and like many, he just assumed his agent was free. His agent, while pleasant, responsive, never proactively brought up the commission conversation.
This wasn't discussed.
Never discussed. It was just a line item on the closing disclosure statement, buried amidst dozens of other fees and complex documents that Mark, honestly, probably skimmed over in the excitement of getting his keys.
Understandable in the moment?
Totally understandable. But months later, Mark happened to be discussing his home purchase with a more experienced friend. The friend casually asked, "So what did your agent actually earn on the deal?" Mark realized he had absolutely no idea.
Oh, wow.
So he did a quick online search, discovered that a typical 3% buyer's agent commission on his $500,000 home was $15,000.
15 grand.
15 grand. He felt blindsided, almost, betrayed. He thought, wait, I paid this person $15,000 and all they did was show me houses and fill out an offer. Why didn't they tell me? Now, the agent had done their job to a certain extent, perhaps. But the fault here lay not in the existence of the commission itself, but in the glaring lack of an upfront explanation.
No context.
No context, no explanation of how it works, how it impacts the pricing in his loan, and crucially, how it aligns or doesn't with the agent's incentives. This omission left Mark feeling uninformed, questioning the value he actually received, and ultimately deeply distrustful, even if the agent had good intentions. He felt like he paid full price for half the understanding.
That's a really stark example of how assumptions, fueled by silence, can lead to real frustration. So how can agents, and maybe by extension us as buyers, approach this conversation with more clarity? How do we build a stronger foundation of trust right from the outset?
What's fascinating here is the concept the source introduces, a commission clarity framework. It's designed specifically to transform this potentially awkward conversation into a trust-building dialogue.
Okay, what does that framework involve?
First, agents should proactively explain how commissions are split, demystify the payment flow, show exactly where the money goes from the seller to the listing agent's brokerage, then to the buyer's agent's brokerage, and finally to the agent, minus splits and fees.
Make it transparent.
Totally transparent. Second, they need to show how it directly impacts the offer price, anchoring the buyer's financial awareness by illustrating how that commission is baked into the total loan amount you'll be paying interest on.
Connecting the dots.
Exactly. Third, they should clearly discuss how they earn their fee, detailing the specific strategy, the risk management, the negotiation efforts, even the emotional labor involved. This builds trust and accountability for the value they provide. Fourth, maybe offering performance metrics or a track record can help justify their value proposition.
Showing results.
Showing results. And finally, perhaps most importantly, they should actively invite questions about compensation. Make it an open, safe dialogue, not a taboo topic.
That's a much more proactive and frankly empowering approach for everyone. Beyond just the numbers and splits, though, what do agents really wish buyers understood about their compensation structure?
I think agents really wish buyers understood that they are truly paid on results, not hourly. They don't get a paycheck until and unless the deal successfully closes.
High risk for them, too.
Exactly. Often after weeks, sometimes months of intensive work market analysis, showings, offer writing, negotiation, problem solving, with absolutely no guarantee of compensation if the deal falls through. This fee they earn, when they do earn it, covers extensive market strategy, meticulous risk management during inspections and disclosures, complex negotiation with multiple parties, sellers, listing agents, lenders, appraisers, inspectors, and often significant emotional labor. Guiding buyers through what can be a very stressful, high-stakes process is demanding.
It's definitely not just opening doors.
Not even close. If buyers truly grasp the scope of work and the risk involved, they might stop asking if an agent is worth it and start asking how they deliver that strategic value that justifies the fee. Understanding this empowers you, the listener, to evaluate an agent's true worth, to align your incentives with theirs, and ultimately make smarter, more informed decisions about your massive investment. Commission isn't taboo. Handled correctly, it's a critical signal of trust and strategic value.
Okay, let's shift gears now to a really critical aspect of the journey, the reality check. This chapter focuses on how emotion-driven decisions can end up costing buyers way more than they realize. As a buyer, the process is incredibly exciting, right? Full of dreams, possibilities.
Absolutely.
And that can lead to what our sources call emotional fallout, and maybe even a confidence illusion. What does that actually look like in practice, and why is it so dangerous?
It's such a common and extremely costly pitfall. You see buyers who are often smart, highly motivated, financially savvy people.
Right, successful professionals.
Exactly. But they can spiral into frustration because they are simply unprepared for the sheer emotional roller coaster of home buying. They often tour homes without a clear strategic filter in place. They submit offers based almost entirely on an immediate emotional connection, that love at first sight feeling.
We've all felt that.
We have. And then they fall back on the assumption that their agent will handle everything without fully understanding the mechanics or asking how things work. This creates what the source calls a confidence illusion. They start out pre-approved, motivated, excited to win in a competitive market, which feels great initially.
Feels proactive.
Right. But confidence without clarity and strategy is incredibly dangerous. I've seen buyers overpay significantly in bidding wars, waive critical inspections they didn't fully comprehend the risks of waiving, or accept terms that profoundly hurt their long-term resale potential. All because the sheer excitement of the purchase overrode rational thought. They get emotionally locked in and start ignoring crucial caution signs.
I can absolutely see how that desire to win a bidding war could lead someone to overcommit. It's almost like a gambler's high, maybe?
It can feel like that, yeah.
Tell us about the fast-track regret case study from the source material.
Yeah.
It sounds like it vividly illustrates this point and the specific consequences.
Yeah, this case study perfectly encapsulates the danger of momentum without a strategic pause. Picture Alex and Jamie, a young couple, super eager to buy their first home. They hired an agent who is known for fast closings.
Okay. Red flag, maybe.
Potentially. In a bit of a frenzy, they toured maybe 15 homes in just 2 weekends, felt an instant connection with this charming bungalow, immediately wanted to offer, desperate to win it in what felt like a hot market. Their agent, while very amiable, didn't really push back on their emotional rush, didn't strongly suggest a deeper dive into comps or potential downsides.
Went with their flow.
They secured the home quickly. Initially, they were ecstatic, posted the sold photo online, all smiles.
Dream achieved.
So they thought. But just 3 months later, the regret began to creep in. A sudden, heavy downpour revealed a leak, leading to a shocking $15,000 roof repair estimate.
Ouch. Not in the budget.
Definitely not. Then, they started noticing houses in their immediate vicinity sitting on the market longer than expected. Revealed unforeseen neighborhood resale challenges that their agent hadn't proactively flagged. And to compound their frustration, they started really dissecting their loan documents for the first time.
After closing.
Realized they hadn't fully understood some of the adjustable terms, which were now set to increase their monthly payments significantly in the near future. This just highlights the real cost of momentum without a strategic pause, without a deep dive into the financial and structural realities. It's a prime example of how fast closings can sometimes lead to deeply felt, slow regrets that erode both financial security and emotional peace of mind.
That's a really stark reminder that speed isn't always smart, especially in real estate. So how can agents implement what the source calls a reality check framework to protect buyers from their own emotional overreach? And what should buyers themselves be saying to ensure a smart rather than just fast closing?
The reality check framework is fundamentally about intentionally slowing the process down at key moments, reducing that emotional bias and injecting strategic thought.
Pumping the brakes.
Exactly, pumping the brakes. This involves the agent debriefing thoroughly after each showing, not just asking, "Did you like it?" and moving on. It means explaining offer mechanics, including the risks and benefits of different terms, before bidding starts, so decisions are anchored in logic, not just raw excitement.
Education up front.
Yes. Agents should proactively flag inspection leverage opportunities, how findings can be used to protect equity. And crucially, they need to instill and encourage walk-away readiness to preserve long-term value, even if it means losing a deal.
Okay, and as a buyer, what should I be saying? How do I prompt this?
As a buyer, you need to be actively engaging with questions like, okay, before we jump into an offer, can we pause and review the comparable sales thoroughly and dispassionately? If we win this bid, what's our precise inspection strategy? What are our non-negotiables for repairs or credits? Are there any potential resale risks in this specific property or this particular neighborhood that I might not be seeing, even though I love the house?
Challenging your own excitement.
Yes, and asking your agent directly, would you honestly advise me to walk away if needed, even if you know I'm emotionally attached to this house? And can you show me how this potential deal compares objectively to others you've recently closed for buyers in a similar situation?
These questions really do sharpen the agent's impact, don't they? They force a strategic conversation.
Absolutely. They turn a potentially fast but risky closing into a smart closing, where you, the buyer, are an active participant in your own protection, being deliberate, not just reactive to the market or your emotions.
Okay, moving on to the interview framework. This chapter is all about how smart buyers can and should challenge agents with strategic questions right from the start. When a buyer first meets or interviews an agent, it should be a crucial interview moment, right?
Yeah.
Going beyond just charm or a friendly vibe, it's a mutual evaluation.
Exactly right. An agent interview is absolutely a profound two-way street. While the buyer is obviously scrutinizing the agent, the best agents are also evaluating the buyer.
Really? What are they looking for?
They're assessing the buyer's readiness, their strategic mindset, their willingness to collaborate. Because the most successful buyer-agent relationships aren't built on just superficial charm or liking each other. They're built on radical clarity and deep strategic alignment.
So how does asking tough questions play into that?
If a buyer comes in asking strategic, probing questions, it signals they are serious, engaged, and they understand the high stakes involved. That's a positive sign for a good agent. Conversely, if a buyer is passive, just kind of hoping the agent will handle everything.
Like we talked about before.
Yeah, that raises a red flag for the agent too. That's not a partnership, it's passivity. And it's often a setup for potential misunderstandings and missed opportunities down the line. A truly good agent actually welcomes the scrutiny. It allows them to demonstrate their value and strategic depth far beyond just surface-level friendliness.
That makes perfect sense. It shows the buyer is serious. So what are the questions that buyers rarely ask during this interview, but absolutely should ask to avoid that passive interview pitfall?
Most buyers, typically they ask surface-level questions, like how long have you been in real estate? Or do you know this neighborhood well? Maybe, can you show me homes this weekend?
The basics.
The basics, which are fine as conversation starters, sure, but they don't reveal how an agent truly thinks or operates strategically under pressure. The buyers who achieve the best results, according to the source, are those who dig deeper.
Okay, like what? Give us the killer questions.
They ask things like, what's your specific negotiation philosophy and how do you implement it in competitive situations? Can you give me a recent concrete example? How do you specifically handle inspection fallout and negotiate for repairs or credits to protect my equity? What's your approach? Can you walk me through your last 3 buyer wins, specifically the challenges you face in those deals and how you strategically overcame them for your client?
Wow. Asking for proof.
Yeah, evidence of strategy and action. Also, what's your detailed approach to navigating potential appraisal gaps, especially in a market where bidding wars are common? And this critical one. Will you commit to advising me to walk away if the deal isn't right for my long-term goals, even if I'm emotionally invested and want to push forward?
Those are incredibly insightful and, yeah, definitely challenging questions. The passive interview case study you shared earlier really highlights why these deep questions are so vital. Can you just briefly remind us of that scenario?
Right, it was that classic scenario. Buyer needs to move quickly, gets a casual referral, has a short chat, feels a good vibe, and hires the agent. No deep vetting.
No strategic questions asked.
None. Assumed niceness meant competence. The result. The agent advised settling for a small credit during inspection instead of pushing harder, missing opportunities. The buyer signed loan terms they didn't fully grasp because the agent didn't push for deeper review. And post-close surprise resale limitations surfaced that the agent hadn't proactively researched.
Costly assumptions.
Very costly. Trusted the vibe, never vetted the strategy, led to significant frustration and financial burdens that could likely have been avoided with a more rigorous interview up front.
So if a buyer wants to be a smart buyer and avoid that, what does an ideal interview framework look like according to the source? What key areas should those questions probe? And conversely, what do the best agents look for in buyers to know they can truly partner effectively?
The ideal interview framework really emphasizes questions that force an agent to reveal their true capabilities and strategic mindset. You want to probe several key areas. For transparency and ethics, ask, how exactly do you get paid, and how does that payment structure potentially affect the advice you give me? Get it out in the open.
Tackling commission head on.
Absolutely. For tactical depth, inquire. What's your proven offer strategy in competitive markets? Walk me through the specifics of how you construct a winning offer. To understand their risk management, ask, how do you specifically protect buyers during inspections and manage any negative fallout? For accountability, probe with something like, can you show me your buyer success metrics or maybe testimonials that speak to your strategic approach beyond just closing deals?
Evidence again.
Yes. And for operational clarity, ask, what's your communication style and expected responsiveness during the critical escrow period, especially when unexpected issues inevitably arise?
Those are powerful questions. They really get to the core of an agent's approach and can distinguish a true advocate from someone who's just, facilitating. What then do the best agents look for in buyers? You said they vet us too.
They do. Good agents are looking for a genuine, engaged partnership. They look for buyers who demonstrate a real willingness to learn the process, not just be told what to do. Buyers who show deep respect for the complexity involved.
Not just demanding.
Right. They look for a strategic mindset, someone who prioritizes long-term value over just short-term gratification or winning at any cost. Emotional discipline is absolutely key, as we discussed, and clear, honest, open communication. These qualities signal that the buyer is ready to be an active, informed partner. That allows the agent to truly deliver the highest level of strategic protection for their financial future. Challenging your agent up front isn't adversarial. It means you're serious about hiring an advocate for your financial future, someone who will fight for your best interests, not just a guide who passively facilitates a transaction.
Okay, Chapter 6 brings us to the loyalty illusion. This explores how loyalty, when it's not backed by scrutiny, can lead to incredibly costly mistakes. The idea of being loyal to an agent, maybe someone you know personally or used before, it sounds noble, right? It feels intuitively like the right thing to do. But our source suggests it can actually be a trap. Why is that?
Yeah, what's really fascinating here is how loyalty in this context can often be, well, emotional inertia just masquerading as a virtue, especially in a high-stakes financial transaction like buying a home.
Emotional inertia, I like that phrase.
It sounds noble to say, oh, I'm loyal to my agent. But if that loyalty isn't consistently backed by demonstrated strategic alignment, transparent communication, and rigorous scrutiny of their performance, it can lead to significant financial mistakes. I've seen buyers stick with agents who consistently fail to negotiate hard for them.
Even when they know better.
Sometimes. Or agents who avoid the tough, necessary conversations about risks. Agents who misread crucial market signals. Or even those who, perhaps unintentionally, end up pushing deals that ultimately benefit their own commission more than the buyer's long-term financial health. When this happens, that sense of loyalty, instead of protecting the buyer, often transforms into deep regret down the line.
And it's hard to break that feeling of obligation.
Incredibly strong. The social pressure to maintain that loyalty, especially if it's a friend or family member, even when the agent isn't performing optimally, is immense, especially given the emotional and financial weight of buying a home. But your financial future demands more than just a friendly face or a sense of obligation.
That's a powerful point. Loyalty is emotional inertia. It really is hard to break that perceived obligation sometimes. Tell us about the misplaced loyalty case study from the source. It sounds like it brings this to life with some specific, painful consequences.
Yeah, this case study is a stark and unfortunately probably quite common reminder. Picture a buyer. Let's call him David. Young professional. Out of a sense of family obligation and loyalty, he decided to work with his cousin Lisa. Lisa was a newly licensed real estate agent, enthusiastic but with very limited experience.
Oh boy, the family connection.
Exactly. David implicitly trusted Lisa because of their relationship. He never interviewed other more experienced agents, never really questioned her proposed strategy, just relied on her enthusiasm and their connection.
Or happened.
The result was pretty devastating for David. In a market that was actually softening slightly, Lisa's lack of negotiation skills meant David overpaid by about $25,000 for his home. He missed a crucial opportunity to secure a much better price.
25 grand.
Yeah. Then, during the inspection phase, Lisa, lacking the experience to identify subtle but important red flags, missed critical issues. These led to costly repairs just months after closing, specifically a leaking water heater that had corroded a section of the subfloor, a messy fix.
More unexpected costs.
Right. Furthermore, she didn't conduct a thorough enough analysis of the neighborhood's long-term development plans. David discovered, after purchasing, that his property was located in an area slated for significant commercial construction nearby, which severely impacted its future resale potential and desirability.
So the value proposition changed.
Dramatically. The lesson from the source material here is direct, almost blunt. Real estate isn't a friendship contest, it's a financial battlefield. This example highlights how choosing familiarity or emotional obligation over proven expertise and strategic rigor can severely impact your financial future, leading to profound and lasting regret.
That's a tough, very expensive lesson to learn. So how should buyers think about differentiating between loyalty versus strategic alignment? How do we need to rethink loyalty in this specific context to ensure our best interests are truly protected?
True loyalty in this context isn't blind. It has to be earned. earned through consistent strategic alignment, transparent communication, mutual accountability, and a demonstrated willingness by the agent to prioritize the buyer's best interests above absolutely everything else, including their own commission.
It's an outcome, not a starting point.
Exactly. It should be an outcome of a successful, trusting, and strategically sound partnership, not the default starting point based on pre-existing relationships or feelings. Buyers should rethink loyalty by actively interviewing multiple agents, even if they have a prior connection, asking those hard strategic questions that go beyond personality, comparing their proposed strategies side by side, rigorously prioritizing the best professional fit over mere familiarity or obligation.
And being willing to walk away from the relationship.
Yes. They must also cultivate the willingness to pivot, to walk away from an agent relationship if the partnership isn't genuinely serving their best interests. Your financial future is simply too important to leave to chance or misplaced sentiment.
What are some of those common loyalty myths that buyers need to proactively reframe in their minds to avoid these costly pitfalls?
There are several powerful myths that the source suggests need dismantling. I've known my agent for years is a big one. It often equates familiarity with deep expertise, which just isn't always true. Someone friendly at a barbecue might not be a shark when it comes to negotiating your biggest asset.
Different skill sets.
Totally different. They're really nice is another trap. Niceness doesn't automatically translate to strong negotiation skills, proactive risk management, or sharp strategic acumen. The fear of, I don't want to offend them, this often prioritizes the agent's ego or your discomfort over your multi-$100,000 financial future. That's a critically imbalanced trade-off.
Yeah, that puts it in perspective.
They helped my friend family member successfully, assumes your unique goals, your specific circumstances, and your personal risk tolerance are identical to theirs, which they rarely are. Every deal is different. And finally, that feeling of, I feel obligated, it completely misses the point. You're not hiring a friend for a casual favor. You're hiring a fiduciary.
A legal term with real weight.
Yes, someone legally and ethically bound to act solely in your best financial interest. Your financial future deserves a strategic partner who is proven and aligned with your goals, not just a friendly face or someone you feel obligated to use.
Okay, let's pick up on the commission conversation again, Chapter 7, because this ties directly back into our earlier discussion about the free agent myth and that concept of misplaced loyalty. Why do buyers typically avoid this topic? Why do they feel awkward or fear it might somehow sour the relationship? And what does commission actually cover when you're working with a truly valuable strategic agent?
Yeah, it's fascinating how uncomfortable this topic makes people. Most buyers feel incredibly awkward discussing commission. They worry it might be perceived as rude, maybe petty, or that it could sour their relationship with their agent right off the bat. Or they might just assume it's non-negotiable, so why even bring it up?
Just accept it as the cost of entry.
Right. But here's the thing. If you don't truly understand how your agent is paid, you fundamentally don't understand their incentives. And you might be paying a significant amount for a level of loyalty or service that you haven't truly vetted or tested.
You don't know what you're paying for.
Exactly. What many buyers don't realize is that the commission for a truly valuable strategic agent covers far, far more than just showing homes or handling paperwork. It includes meticulously strategizing offers for optimal price and terms, navigating incredibly complex inspection processes to protect your investment long-term, actively managing lender timelines to keep the deal on track and avoid costly delays.
A lot of project management.
Huge amount. Proactively protecting your interests against various legal and financial pitfalls that can arise, absorbing significant legal risk inherent in these complex transactions. And, of course, negotiating with skill and finesse to secure the best possible terms for you. However, and this is crucial,
Yes.
it's also crucial to remember that not all agents provide this comprehensive level of strategic value, even if they're collecting the same standard commission percentage. The value delivered can vary wildly.
That's a really critical distinction. The value delivered can be vastly different, even if the commission percentage looks the same on paper. Can you illustrate this again with that more detailed silent buyer case study from the source? Show us the specific financial and maybe even emotional fallout from not having this conversation.
Absolutely. The source provides a particularly vivid illustration here. Let's consider Emily, another first-time buyer. She found an agent through a quick online search. This seemed pleasant enough, but Emily never asked about commission. She just assumed it was standard, probably non-negotiable.
Didn't want to rock the boat.
Didn't want to rock the boat. Her agent ultimately received a 3% commission on her purchase. On her $400,000 condo, That was $12,000. Emily felt, well, that's just the cost of doing business.
Okay.
However, throughout the entire process, the agent offered pretty minimal strategic guidance, often just forwarding documents without thorough explanations or context. Emily actually skipped a crucial inspection walkthrough because her agent said something like, "Oh, it's fine, the inspector will cover everything in the report."
Missing firsthand contact.
Totally missing that firsthand context and understanding of minor issues that later became nagging, expensive problems. And critically, post-close, her agent went completely silent. Ghosted her, basically.
Wow.
Leaving her completely abandoned to navigate all the new homeowner issues, setting up utilities correctly, understanding her complex HOA fees and rules, finding reliable contractors for those nagging repairs. She was totally alone.
And so the service ended at closing.
Abruptly. Emily later stumbled upon articles online, maybe listened to a podcast like this one, and learned that commission can sometimes be negotiable. That some agents offer rebates or tiered service levels based on the buyer's needs, and that the amount paid should directly correlate with the strategic value received. She realized she had paid a full 3%, $12,000, for what amounted to minimal guidance and absolutely zero post-close support.
How did she feel?
She didn't just feel frustrated, she felt profoundly taken advantage of, like she'd paid full price for half the service and none of the crucial strategic protection she actually needed. This oversight, born from silence and assumption, cost her not only potentially thousands in negotiation, but also significant peace of mind and added immense stress.
That's incredibly frustrating and really highlights a genuine vulnerability for buyers who don't ask. So what are the specific strategic questions buyers should be asking about commission? Questions to avoid pitfalls like Emily's and ensure they're getting true value for that significant fee.
What's fascinating here, again, is that good agents aren't offended by these questions. In fact, the source suggests they're often impressed. It signals a strategic, informed buyer they actually want to partner with.
Okay, give us the questions.
You should ask, how are you compensated? And specifically, by whom? Can you walk me through the exact payment flow from seller to you? This demystifies the structure, identifies any potential conflicts of interest right away.
Transparency.
Yes, ask. Is your commission negotiable? Or do you have standard rates you adhere to based on the specific services you provide in this transaction? This tests their flexibility and transparency. Inquire, do you offer any rebates or perhaps tiered service options? Maybe for certain types of transactions, or if I, as the buyer, handle some aspects myself. This opens up options for budget-conscious buyers and reveals alternative business models.
Exploring options.
Exploring options. A really powerful question is, how does your compensation structure specifically affect the advice you give me, particularly when it comes to negotiating the purchase price or asking for repair credits? This helps surface any potential unconscious bias or misalignment of incentive.
Getting to the core motivation.
Exactly. And finally, can you show me specifically what your commission truly covers in terms of tangible services, strategic value delivered, and crucially, your long-term support commitment after closing? This demands accountability and a clear justification of their fee based on the value you'll receive.
These questions don't just grant you clarity. It feels like they give you immense control and confidence. It shifts the power dynamic back to the buyer, ensuring you're hiring an agent whose incentives are truly aligned with your financial future, where commission isn't just some hidden number, but a strategic lever you understand and can use to secure the best possible outcome.
You got it. It becomes part of the strategic conversation, not something swept under the rug.
Okay, we've successfully navigated the offer, it's been accepted, and now we're officially in escrow. For many buyers, myself included in the past, this feels like the finish line is in sight. The easy part, right? Just paperwork now, waiting for the keys. But Chapter 8 warns us about the escrow illusion. It says this mindset is incredibly dangerous. What's the myth here, and what does escrow actually demand from both the buyer and, crucially, the agent?
The myth is exactly that. It's a pervasive and frankly dangerous illusion. Buyers often breathe this huge sigh of relief once the offer is accepted. They think, okay, the hard part's over, we're in escrow, it's just paperwork now, coasting to closing.
Time to start packing.
Yeah, time to pick out paint colors. But this couldn't be further from the truth. This mindset is incredibly dangerous because escrow is precisely where deals frequently unravel. It's where emotions spike unexpectedly. It's where costly mistakes can hide in plain sight within stacks of documents.
So it's not coasting.
Escrow is not a passive waiting period. The source actually describes it as combat in disguise.
Wow, combat.
Yeah. It's a tactical, demanding phase. It requires meticulous scrutiny of inspection reports to identify crucial leverage points. It requires skilled and often tough negotiation for repair credits or price adjustments based on those findings. It demands constant, diligent monitoring of lender timelines to prevent delays that could jeopardize the entire loan approval.
Lots of moving parts.
Huge number of moving parts. Navigating potential appraisal gaps with strategic pivots, managing complex title issues or HOA document reviews for any red flags, and maintaining an unwavering emotional composure when tensions inevitably rise, because they often do. If an agent isn't proactive, battle-ready, and deeply engaged during this phase, the buyer is incredibly exposed to significant financial and legal risks. They're flying blind.
That truly reframes that whole period between offer acceptance and getting the keys. It sounds much more like a minefield than a victory lap.
Yeah.
Can you give us a detailed example, a case study, the escrow complacency, to show what can actually go wrong when this complacent mindset takes over?
Absolutely. Our source vividly describes the escrow complacency of a buyer. Let's call her Jessica. After her offer was accepted on this charming but definitely older home, Jessica mentally checked out. She assumed her agent, David, would just handle everything. She literally went on vacation, happily planning her move-in day.
Thinking it was all settled.
Totally settled in her mind. Meanwhile, back in escrow, reality started to hit hard. The inspection revealed about $18,000 in necessary foundation repairs, plus an aging HVAC system on its last legs. David, her agent, unfortunately, was a bit too passive. He didn't push back effectively on the seller, who was reluctant to offer significant credits. David just sort of suggested a minor price reduction, didn't really fight for more.
Didn't maximize the leverage.
Didn't maximize the leverage at all. To compound matters, Jessica's lender, maybe due to a backlog, missed a critical deadline for getting the appraisal done. This delay caused a ripple effect, jeopardizing their locked interest rate. Then the appraisal finally came in, significantly low, creating a substantial appraisal gap they hadn't planned for. The seller, seeing all these issues piling up, started getting cold feet, threatening to back out of the deal entirely.
Whole thing could fall apart.
Exactly. David, seemingly caught off guard, didn't have a robust contingency plan. He didn't strategically renegotiate terms based on the low appraisal or the repair costs, didn't escalate issues effectively with the lender, and largely left Jessica to deal with the mounting stress while she was still trying to enjoy her vacation.
Nightmare vacation call.
You bet. Jessica did eventually close the deal, somehow. But she inherited a significant mess. A looming $18,000 repair bill, a higher interest rate than she'd locked, and a home that was technically underwater from day one due to the appraisal gap. It was a perfect illustration of how escrow complacency on both the buyer and the agent's part leads to profound post-close regret and financial burdens that absolutely could have been avoided with stronger advocacy and strategic vigilance during that critical period.
That's a true nightmare scenario that could leave any buyer reeling for years. So what are the specific strategic questions buyers should be actively asking their agent during escrow? How do we ensure we remain in control and protected rather than becoming complacent like Jessica?
This is precisely where you, the buyer, must step up and become an active, inquisitive participant in your own protection. You cannot afford to check out.
Stay engaged.
Stay deeply engaged. You should be asking your agent things like, okay, what's our precise inspection strategy now that we have the report? How will we leverage these findings, and what are our absolute non-negotiables for repairs or credits? How will you handle potential appraisal issues if it comes in low? What's our plan B for bridging that gap? What's our realistic timeline buffer for all these critical deadlines, lender approval, title clearance, seller disclosures? And who specifically is accountable for tracking each one and ensuring it's met on time?
Holding people accountable.
Yes. Ask, can you walk me through the title report and the seller disclosure review process in detail? Highlight any potential red flags or concerns I should be aware of, and, critically, what happens if the seller stalls or tries to back out now? What's our contingency plan? What are our legal rights and strategic options in that scenario?
Planning for the worst case.
Planning for contingencies. These questions don't just inform you, they reveal your agent's strategic depth, their proactive approach, their ability to problem solve under pressure. They ensure you're not just a passive passenger during this high-stakes phase. Escrow truly is the proving ground for a good agent. If you're not asking these tough questions, you're not in control, and you're leaving yourself potentially vulnerable.
This brings us perfectly to Chapter 9, the walkaway principle. This is fascinating because it focuses directly on knowing when to not close a deal. As we've touched on, many buyers fall deeply in love with a particular home. They start imagining their future there, which sounds wonderful, but the source warns it can become a dangerous emotional trap. How exactly does this powerful emotional attachment cloud judgment, and what are the real risks involved?
This emotional trap is incredibly powerful, and honestly, it's something I see happen all the time in real estate. Buyers can fall so deeply in love with a specific house, they're mentally placing their furniture in the living room, visualizing their kids playing in the backyard, mapping out their entire future unfolding within those four walls.
They're already moved in mentally.
Completely moved in mentally. And because of that, they become completely blind to glaring red flags. Serious issues that should halt the process. This de-emotional attachment clouds their judgment. It leads them to rationalize away significant problems or overlook serious defects that a rational mind, detached from that intense emotion, would never ignore. It's often referred to as deal fever.
Deal fever, yeah.
A good strategic agent understands this powerful psychology. They actively fight for emotional discipline in their clients, not just for closing any deal that comes along. If an agent isn't careful, or if they perhaps prioritize getting their commission check over the client's long-term well-being, they can inadvertently enable this emotional overreach. And that can lead to truly disastrous long-term financial outcomes for their client. The cost of the one, when it's the wrong one, can become astronomically high.
That sounds like a really difficult tightrope for both the buyer, caught up in emotion, and the agent trying to guide them. Can you tell us about the deal that should have died case study from the source? What were the specific painful consequences in that situation?
Yeah, this case study is a powerful and unfortunately not uncommon illustration. Imagine a buyer. Let's call her Lisa. She'd been searching for months in a tough market, feeling frustrated. Finally, she found what she absolutely believes was the one. Perfect location, charming character. She envisioned her entire life there, mentally decorating every single room.
Deeply invested.
Deeply emotionally invested. However, the inspection revealed serious structural issues, significant foundation cracks requiring extensive, very costly repairs. The seller, maybe in a challenging market themselves and unwilling to drop the price further, outright refused to conduct the necessary repairs or even offer a substantial credit.
Stalemate.
Big stalemate. To compound matters, the lender, seeing the inspection report, flagged significant appraisal risk due to those foundation issues. They indicated the property might not even appraise for the agreed-upon price, creating a potential appraisal gap of maybe $30,000.
Multiple major red flags.
Huge red flags waving everywhere. Lisa's agent, recognizing all these issues and the immense potential long-term financial burden, strongly advised her to walk away from the deal, cut her losses.
The right advice.
The right, tough advice. But Lisa, deeply emotionally invested, hesitated. She said things like, "But I love it. We can fix the foundation later. We'll make it work somehow." Despite her agent's continued counsel and persistent warnings about the future costs and risks, Lisa, driven entirely by emotion, decided to proceed. Overrode the advice.
What happened after closing?
6 months later, the true cost hit home, literally. The foundation repairs ended up ballooning to $40,000, far exceeding her already stretched budget. She then faced absolute resale nightmares because of the property's documented history and the unresolved stigma of the foundation issues. Struggled to even attract potential buyers later on. Lisa was left with profound regret, significant financial strain, and a home that felt much more like a heavy burden than the dream she'd envisioned. This clearly demonstrates that sometimes the real win isn't closing a problematic deal at any cost, but having the emotional discipline and, crucially, the support of a strong agent to make the tough call and walk away.
So walking away isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's actually a powerful strategic move that protects your future. What does walking away actually mean in practical terms during a transaction? And what are the specific strategic signals to say walk that buyers should be acutely aware of, even if they're feeling emotionally invested?
Exactly right. Walking away isn't quitting. It's not failing. It's about protecting your financial leverage. It's about preserving your future options. And it's about rigorously refusing to let powerful emotion override sound financial strategy. For a good agent, the core responsibility isn't just to push deals through, it's to fight for that discipline in their clients, even when it's unpopular or means losing a commission.
What are those signals then? When should the alarm bells really go off?
There are clear strategic signals that strongly indicate it's time to seriously consider walking. If the inspection reveals major structural issues, we're talking significant foundation problems, extensive roof damage needing immediate replacement, critical electrical or plumbing systems that are failing, that's a long-term financial risk that could severely impact your investment and drain your wallet for years. That's a big one.
Okay, what else?
If the seller refuses reasonable concessions for these significant, potentially deal-breaking issues, it signals extreme inflexibility. It might hint at future conflicts or undisclosed problems. It shows they're not truly partnered in making the deal work fairly. A significantly low appraisal, one that creates a large appraisal gap you can't realistically or comfortably cover, undermines your equity from day one and can severely impact your loan terms or even approval. If major HOA or title issues surface late in the game, like significant outstanding lawsuits against the HOA, highly restrictive covenants you weren't aware of that impact your lifestyle, or unresolved liens on the property, these can lead to serious legal and lifestyle complications that far outweigh the initial appeal of the home.
And what if you sense your agent is maybe becoming too invested in just closing the deal, perhaps overlooking some of these red flags themselves?
That is a huge flashing red signal that your incentives might have become misaligned. If your agent seems pressured to just close the deal, despite these accumulating serious red flags, it might indicate their potential commission is taking precedence over your best long-term financial interests. This is a critical moment for you, the buyer, to pause, assert your strategic advantage, and really lean into the walkaway principle. Remember, walking away from the wrong deal is wisdom. If you're afraid to walk away from a clearly problematic situation, you're not truly ready to win in the long run. Emotional discipline, supported by a clear-headed, ethical agent, is in fact the ultimate buyer advantage and your most powerful negotiating tool. Sometimes the best deal is the one you don't make.
Okay, let's talk about what happens after the celebration in Chapter 10, the post-close reality. Closing day is so often treated as the grand finale, the false finish line, as our source puts it. Confetti, keys, done. But for the unprepared buyer, this can quickly turn into a rather rude awakening, can't it? What really happens after the keys are handed over, and why is this often such a blind spot in the process?
Yeah, this is a massive and often quite painful blind spot for many buyers, and maybe even for some agents who are just focused on the transaction itself. They treat closing day like the final victory lap, the obligatory selfie with the sold sign, popping the champagne.
Which is understandable. It's a huge relief.
Totally understandable given the emotional and financial journey they've just been through. But behind the scenes, the reality of actual home ownership is just beginning. Post-close is when those unforeseen repairs can suddenly surface. It's where budgets get brutally tested by unexpected expenses you didn't account for. It's where emotions can shift rapidly from pure elation to deep regret, especially if clarity and strategic preparation were lacking during the purchase process itself.
It's not the end.
It's absolutely not the end of the journey. It's the true beginning of actual hands-on ownership strategy. And this is where the long-term value of a truly strategic agent really comes into play, or where their absence is most keenly and sometimes painfully felt.
That's a really stark reminder that the work, the thinking, isn't over just because you signed the papers. Can you share the case study, The Unprepared Buyer, from the source, to illustrate this with more vivid detail? What specific issues cropped up for them after closing?
Yeah, the source vividly describes this unprepared buyer scenario through the experience of Sarah again, who closed on that charming fixer-upper we mentioned. She was initially thrilled with her new home, super eager to start painting and making it her own.
The fun part.
The fun part. However, within just a month, a cascade of unexpected issues began to surface. First, persistent plumbing problems emerged, a leaky pipe under the kitchen sink that, unfortunately, led to some minor water damage already. Then she discovered, through a neighbor, some unpermitted additions had been done in the basement years ago, things that could cause legal headaches down the line or certainly impact resale value.
Things the seller didn't disclose.
Possibly, or things that weren't caught properly. To her dismay, she also found herself in conflicts with the HOA over rules she wasn't aware she'd be subject to, like restrictions on exterior paint colors or fence types, because her agent hadn't guided her through a thorough review of the complex HOA documents before closing. And critically, she realized there were significant gaps in her home insurance coverage for certain types of issues, leaving her financially vulnerable.
That's a lot to handle alone.
Huge amount. And to make matters worse, her agent, who had been so responsive and available during the buying process, went completely silent post-close, never checked in, didn't return calls promptly. Sarah felt utterly abandoned. She realized that no one had truly prepared her for the ongoing responsibilities, the hidden costs, the potential pitfalls of actual homeownership. She was left holding the bag, navigating complex issues entirely alone, and completely unprepared for the reality that owning a home is a continuous strategic endeavor, not just a one-time transaction. The initial excitement very quickly turned into stress and profound regret.
That's a scenario that definitely breeds regret and maybe even a feeling of betrayal from the agent. So, what should truly good agents actually do post-close, beyond just sending a generic thank you note or a bottle of wine? And what are some common pitfalls buyers should proactively try to avoid during this critical transition phase?
A truly strategic agent recognizes that post-close shouldn't be a ghosting moment. It absolutely should be a comprehensive coaching moment, a strategic handover, if you will.
What does that look like?
They should provide a detailed post-close checklist, covering essentials like setting up all of the utilities correctly, understanding and registering warranties for appliances and major systems, HVAC, water heater, and ensuring proper home insurance coverage is actually in place and adequate. They would proactively review any unaddressed inspection items with the buyer, the things that weren't fixed or credited, prioritizing what needs immediate attention versus what can wait.
Helping manage the transition.
Exactly. They would connect buyers with their network of vetted, reliable contractors for future work. Flag any potential resale impacting issues they identified during the process but maybe couldn't resolve. Offer guidance on things like property tax adjustments, filing for homestead exemptions, understanding escrow recalibrations. And crucially, they remain available. Available for ongoing questions, referrals to other trusted professionals like accountants or estate planners, and even long-term planning conversations. Because ownership isn't intuitive for most people, it's a continuous strategic endeavor, and a good agent stays part of that strategy.
And what about the buyer's role in avoiding these pitfalls? What should we be doing proactively as we take ownership?
Common post-close pitfalls for buyers include skipping that final walkthrough right before closing. That's your last chance to catch last-minute damage from the move-out or ensure all agreed-upon repairs were actually completed properly. Ignoring inspection leftovers, just putting those deferred maintenance items on the back burner, indefinitely often results in surprise and usually more expensive emergency repairs down the line. Many buyers fail to budget realistically for significant move-in costs and those inevitable initial repairs and upgrades, leading to immediate financial strain.
The just need furniture fallacy.
Exactly. And critically, assuming agent support completely ends at closing leaves them feeling isolated and confused when the inevitable issues or questions arise. Overlooking a long-term resale strategy from day one, like understanding which upgrades actually add value versus those that are purely aesthetic preference, can lead to disappointment and regret years down the line when it's time to sell. You really have to treat closing as the beginning of strategic ownership. If your agent vanishes the moment the check clears, you're left holding the bag, navigating complex, often costly issues entirely alone.
This takes us to a really interesting, maybe even slightly uncomfortable angle in Chapter 11, the agent's blind spots. It suggests that even good, well-meaning agents, people who are trying hard, can sometimes miss what buyers truly need most. And that's strategy over just service. What is this blind spot nobody talks about? Where agents might be measuring their own success by closings instead of by the genuine clarity and long-term satisfaction of their clients.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating, and maybe often frustrating for buyers, is that many agents sincerely believe they're doing an excellent job. And by traditional metrics, maybe they are. They're responsive, they're friendly, they're charismatic, and they successfully close deals. That looks like success, right?
And like it ticks the boxes.
Right. However, the uncomfortable truth revealed by our sources is that buyers don't just need service responsiveness, friendliness. They desperately need strategy, deep, thoughtful, proactive strategy. And many agents, even good ones, don't realize they're falling short on delivering that critical strategic guidance consistently.
Why does this blind spot happen?
It often arises because agents tend to measure their success primarily by the number of closings, the volume of transactions, rather than by the level of clarity achieved, the confidence instilled, or the long-term satisfaction and financial protection of their clients. A high closing rate doesn't automatically mean the buyer was fully educated, strategically protected every step of the way, or truly empowered throughout the entire process. It's sometimes about prioritizing efficiency, transactional speed, or maybe just relying on charisma over providing that deep, proactive strategic guidance. And that gap can leave buyers feeling overwhelmed, underserved, and ultimately sometimes regretting aspects of their purchase months or even years down the line.
Can you give us a detailed example of this well-meaning miss, where an agent genuinely thought they were doing a great job delivering good service, but the buyer ultimately felt abandoned and unsupported in the long run because the strategy was missing?
Absolutely. The source provides a really poignant case study that illuminates this well-meaning miss perfectly. Imagine an agent, let's call her Sarah again, popular name.
Okay.
She helped a young couple, Tom and Maria, close on their first home in record time. Sarah was incredibly available via text and email, always polite, very efficient in processing all the paperwork. From Sarah's perspective, she delivered excellent service. The couple got the home they wanted quickly, and she was always responsive to their immediate needs. Check, check, check.
Sounds good on the surface.
Right. However, Sarah never fully explained the complex nuances of the inspection report in detail. She just summarized it as mostly good, nothing major. She never proactively flagged the potential long-term resale risks associated with a major power line running near the backyard, thinking maybe it wasn't her place to cast doubt. She didn't thoroughly review the dense loan terms with Tom and Maria, assuming their lender had adequately covered it.
Passing the buck slightly.
Maybe unintentionally, yeah. She rarely debriefed strategically after showings to assess alignment or challenge assumptions, instead just asking, next, and moving on to the next house on the list. And critically, she never really challenged their emotional decisions when they quickly fixated on the one, even when a few minor red flags perhaps should have prompted a deeper discussion.
So the deal closed, but
The couple closed the deal, got the keys, were initially happy, but a few months later, they felt completely overwhelmed, underinformed about basic home maintenance, ultimately unsupported when a small issue, perhaps mentioned briefly in the inspection, grew into a major, costly repair they weren't prepared for. While Sarah genuinely believed she had done her job well, she got them the house. The disconnect was profound. Sarah focused on the transactional aspects of service. Tom and Maria desperately needed strategic partnership, proactive education, and a long-term advocate. They received charisma and efficiency, but lacked clarity and strategic protection, leaving them feeling adrift and abandoned after the keys were handed over.
that's such a crucial distinction, being the good service provider versus being a good strategic partner. What are some of the other common agent blind spots identified in the source? And how can agents, or maybe even us as buyers, prompt them to self-audit their approach to ensure true comprehensive protection is being provided?
Common agent blind spots include fundamentally assuming buyers inherently understand the complex process, which, let's face it, almost no first-time buyer does. This invariably leads to confusion, anxiety, and potential regret. Many agents actively avoid tough conversations about potential risks, necessary compromises, or applying the walkaway principle, missing crucial opportunities for client protection. They might over-rely on charm and rapport. While helpful for building initial connection, it can ultimately undermine their strategic value if it's not backed by solid substance and advice. Failing to educate buyers proactively throughout the process leaves them vulnerable to misinformation, purely emotional decisions, and a general lack of preparedness for ownership. And as we discussed, measuring success solely by closings fundamentally ignores the profound importance of long-term client satisfaction, confidence, and genuine empowerment.
So how can agents actively audit themselves to bridge this potential gap? And how can buyers use this knowledge to help ensure they're working with the right kind of strategic partner?
To avoid these blind spots, the source suggests an agent should regularly engage in a critical self-audit, asking themselves tough questions like, did I truly challenge my buyer's assumptions today, or did I just go along with their excitement? Did I explain the why behind every recommendation I made, every offer term, every inspection decision, not just the what? Did I proactively offer strategic alternatives and discuss their potential long-term implications, rather than just presenting a limited set of easy options? Did I intentionally slow down the process when I sensed my buyer was speeding up due to emotion, rather than just following their lead to get the deal done faster? And finally, did I follow up post-close with real, tangible support and resources, or did I basically disappear after my commission check cleared?
Those are powerful self-reflection questions.
Very. If an agent can't answer a resounding yes to all, or at least most of those questions consistently, they're likely not doing enough to provide truly comprehensive strategic protection. You, the listener, deserve an agent who embraces clarity over charisma, education over mere efficiency, strategy over speed, accountability over autopilot, and building long-term trust over just chasing short-term wins. It's really about facilitating transformation for the buyer, not just executing a transaction.
This brings us perfectly to the final chapter, Chapter 12, the clarity contract. This really feels like it brings all these crucial insights together, a powerful culmination. It makes the bold claim that strategic alignment beats chemistry, and that ultimately clarity builds trust. Why does clarity, that upfront alignment, matter more than just that initial good chemistry or friendly vibe in the buyer-agent relationship, especially for such a significant, stressful life decision?
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here, and it resonates with everything we've discussed, is that most buyer-agent relationships do often begin with good vibes. You know, a referral from a trusted friend, a friendly chat at an open house, maybe a few successful initial showings. There's good chemistry, and that feels nice, right? It feels
Because
comfortable.
that makes you want to work with them.
Exactly. But without clearly defined expectations established up front, even the best intentions and the warmest feelings can rapidly unravel when stress inevitably hits during the transaction, or when tough, potentially costly decisions need to be made quickly. Buyers often fall back on assuming their agent will just magically handle everything perfectly, while agents might assume buyers will actively ask questions whenever they're confused or unsure.
Neither happens.
In reality, neither often happens proactively or consistently. This creates communication gaps. And when things inevitably go sideways during a complex transaction, an inspection issue, an appraisal problem, a lender delay trust can quickly erode if that clear foundation wasn't laid. That's precisely why the concept of a clarity contract, as the source frames it, is so powerful.
And it's not a legal thing.
No, it's not a legal document you sign with lawyers. It's described more as a strategic handshake. A mutual agreement, a shared understanding, designed specifically for achieving deep alignment and radical transparency right from the very beginning of the relationship. It formalizes the intention of both parties to operate as true strategic partners.
Okay, so it's about setting those clear expectations and defining mutual commitments for both sides. Moving beyond just good feelings to concrete agreements. What are the specific commitments an agent should ideally make in this clarity contract, and what should they be asking from the buyer in return to make it work?
The agent's commitment in this clarity contract needs to be multifaceted and robust. It really starts with transparency. They commit to explaining precisely how they're paid, what they truly earn from the transaction, and why understanding that absolutely matters to the buyer's financial outcome and the alignment of incentives. No secrets about money.
Mission clarity again.
Front and center. Then, education. They promise not just to guide the buyer through the process, but to actively teach them the entire process, empowering them with a deep understanding of every step, every document, every decision point. Strategy is next. Every offer crafted, every inspection negotiation undertaken, every major decision discussed will be intentional, purposeful, and backed by data and strategic experience, not just gut feeling.
Purposeful action.
Yes. They commit to relentless advocacy, fiercely protecting the buyer's best interests, even if that means having the difficult conversation about walking away from a problematic deal or challenging the buyer's own emotional impulses when necessary. And finally, accountability. Owning any mistakes, proactively following through on all promises and commitments, and remaining available and supportive even after the closing for ongoing support and questions.
That's a significant commitment from the agent. What does the buyer need to commit to in this strategic handshake to truly make it a functional partnership?
On the buyer's side, their commitment is equally vital for this to succeed. It's a two-way street. They commit to actively asking questions, even the ones they think might be dumb, to ensure continuous alignment and avoid dangerous assumptions piling up. They promise to share concerns early and openly, allowing the agent to pivot strategy and protect them effectively before small issues potentially snowball into big problems.
No bottling things up.
No bottling things up. They agree to be open to strategy, trusting the agent's expertise to help them win smarter, not just faster, even if that means the process takes a bit longer or involves walking away from a house they initially loved. They commit to respecting the process, understanding its inherent complexities, its deadlines, and its requirements for smoother execution. And fundamentally, they agree to treat this as a true partnership, recognizing the agent isn't just a service provider they hired, but a dedicated, strategic advocate for their financial future, whose ultimate success should be tied to the buyer's long-term satisfaction and well-being.
This really sounds like a system designed for profound mutual success. Building trust not just on a casual handshake or a good vibe, but on a deep, shared understanding of roles, responsibilities, and expectations. Can you give us a detailed example from the source, a case study, the clarity win, to illustrate how this actually plays out in practice when done right?
Yeah, this case study perfectly illustrates the power of this proactive, clarity-focused approach. Imagine Alex and Brenda, a couple who, maybe having learned from past mistakes or listened to this deep dive,
Hopefully.
approached their agent interviews with a pre-prepared clarity checklist based on these principles. They aligned early and explicitly with their chosen agent on critical aspects. The agent thoroughly explained her compensation model and her specific negotiation style. She shared her offer success rates transparently, and she clearly outlined her post-close support package and commitments.
All up front.
all up front. Because this solid foundation of clarity was established early and continuously reinforced throughout the process, during the stressful escrow period, Alex and Brenda felt completely empowered to flag concerns quickly and directly without hesitation.
No awkwardness.
No awkwardness. When the inspection revealed a non-urgent but potentially costly repair needed down the line, they worked collaboratively with their agent to strategically renegotiate the terms, ultimately securing a significant seller credit that likely wouldn't have been possible without that pre-established trust on clear communication plan. When a minor appraisal gap emerged, they had already discussed the potential strategy and navigated it with confidence and calm rather than panic.
They were prepared.
They were prepared. They closed with profound confidence, minimal stress, and absolutely no regrets. Months later, this couple enthusiastically referred 3 friends to that same agent, not simply because the agent was nice or got the deal done, but specifically because she delivered unparalleled clarity, proactive strategic protection, and had earned their deep, lasting trust through this system of mutual understanding and commitment. The agent acted as their architect, and they were the informed visionaries, together building a solid foundation for their future.
That's a truly powerful outcome. Referrals driven by clarity and proven strategic value, not just circumstance. So what's the ultimate takeaway here for both agents listening and buyers preparing for this journey regarding this clarity contract concept?
What's fascinating, and the core message here, is that more agents and more buyers should be proactively defining expectations before the first showing even happens, making this alignment conversation an essential, non-negotiable part of the initial onboarding process.
Standard operating procedure.
Exactly. They should plan to debrief strategically after every major milestone, every batch of showings, every offer submitted, win or lose, every inspection report received to ensure continued alignment and make necessary recalibrations along the way. They should treat commission as an open, strategic conversation, not a hidden secret or an awkward taboo topic to be avoided. Building trust through radical transparency and demonstrated competence, rather than just relying on the passage of time or superficial charm, is absolutely paramount. And crucially, both parties should fundamentally view closing not as the finish line, but as the midpoint of a potential long-term relationship, where the agent ideally transitions from being a transaction manager to becoming a trusted real estate advisor for years to come. This strategic agreement, this clarity contract, ensures that the end result isn't just a closed deal, but a confident, empowered buyer who feels truly protected, and a respected, trusted advisor who has built a lasting, valuable relationship based on the powerful foundation of radical clarity. Clarity isn't just a nice value to have. It's a systematic approach to achieving success in the complex world of real estate. #tag outro.
Wow. What an absolutely incredible journey through the world of strategic home buying. We've really uncovered that buying a home isn't just this massive transaction, but a deeply, deeply strategic process.
It really is.
Your agent is such a critical partner in that process, and your active engagement asking those tough questions, demanding that radical clarity we talk so much about, that's truly your ultimate advantage.
Indeed. I mean, we've seen how challenging those baked-in assumptions, really understanding the incentives, demanding transparency at every turn, and just embracing clarity can transform what's often a potentially overwhelming experience
Terrifying sometimes.
into something truly empowering. From debunking that persistent free agent myth with a much deeper understanding of its long-term financial impact, all the way to embracing the walkaway principle as your ultimate source of leverage. These insights really equip you, the listener, to be the master architect of your own home buying future.
Architect, I love that word in this context.
Ensuring you don't just end up with a house, but with a smart, protected, long-term investment.
So, as you reflect on all these insights we've unpacked today, maybe you consider this. Where else in your life might you be operating with some blind spots? Where might you have unexamined assumptions running the show instead of actively seeking radical clarity? Perhaps it's a big career move you're considering, a significant investment outside of real estate, maybe even a complex personal project you're undertaking.
Yeah, that's a great point. Think about what a clarity contract, even an informal one, just for yourself, might look like in those other high-stakes areas of your life. How can the core principles we discussed today, strategic partnership, even if it's just partnering with your future self, clear communication, defining mutual commitments, demanding accountability, and making freely informed decisions, how can those apply? How can they help you navigate those other challenges with greater confidence, more control, moving from just passive hope to the active architecture of your desired future? What specific questions will you start asking yourself or others involved to gain that crucial clarity?
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We genuinely hope you feel empowered, ready to approach your next big decision, whether it's a home or something else, with real purpose, rigor, and that radical clarity.
Remember, every clear decision you make, every honest recalibration along the way, every strategic question you have the courage to ask, it all builds momentum. Momentum that can truly transform your life's trajectory.
And a huge thank you, of course, to dCreator for Howdy Analytics. Their Creator Flow 10 framework provided the incredible, detailed insights that fueled today's entire discussion. Keep iterating, keep empowering creators, and keep making the invisible visible for yourself and for all those you serve. Until next time, stay curious and stay strategic.